Classes in session, college basketball hitting the book show for Tuesday, December 9th. Ian Cameron with you. No Connor Mack today, unfortunately. Stuck at the airport is where he is, so he's not going to be able to get back in time and make it today, but he will be back tomorrow. And tomorrow we've got our members-only show here on the Hitting the Books YouTube channel, which we have Wednesdays and Fridays at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Again, this is those shows on Wednesdays and Fridays exclusive to subscribers and members of the channel and everyone that is currently a member of the channel. We thank you so much for the support. And like I said, we've got the members only shows coming up tomorrow and Friday this week. Tomorrow we'll talk NHL, NBA, college basketball, a look ahead to Thursday night NFL, which is Atlanta versus Tampa Bay. And, of course, Friday we will be back on again. And on Friday, we will talk, obviously, the weekend action, college football. Well, there is no college football. There is actually Army-Navy game. There is still the Army-Navy game. We'll talk about that on Friday's show. We'll also talk about, of course, NBA, NHL, and, of course, a look ahead to the weekend in the NFL on the Friday show for members only. So make sure you you become a member and a subscriber to the channel if you're not already, so that you can get on board and join us for our members-only shows. All right, let's get into some college basketball for Tuesday. And as always, we're going to start with the starting five, the five marquee games of choice on the card. And the five marquee games for the starting five segment, man, they were obvious choices here on this Tuesday slate. We will begin with the first of two games at Madison Square Garden in New York tonight. We've got Clemson and BYU. BYU 5.5-point favorites in this game, 150.5 being the total. Here in this one. You look at these two teams, and Clemson, we've seen what they've been able to do away from Little John Coliseum, which to me is important. Obviously, at home, they beat West Virginia or on the neutral court. On the away from home, we've seen them play Georgetown on a neutral, lose that game 79-74. Actually, that was in Washington. That was actually in Georgetown's they play a lot of their home games on campus, but that one was at Capital One Arena, home of the Washington Capitals. They lost that game, did Clemson, but they played Georgia, lost 97-94 in that game. And, of course, just recently, part of the ACC-SEC Challenge went down to Tuscaloosa and really gave Alabama a game. They fell behind big early, but Clemson battled back, made it interesting. 90-84 was the final score in that game. So interesting to see how this one plays out. But Clemson, has been pretty solid in this road role, especially as in the underdog role. Here's where I stand with BYU. BYU, to me, I know they beat Miami by 10. They had the loss to UConn earlier this season. They did beat Villanova first game of the year, but they only won that game by 5, and they didn't cover. I think this could be a few too many points here to be spotting this Clemson team. Obviously, when you look at the BYU Cougars, they have the potential to be just a phenomenal starting five. There's no doubt the starting five is awesome. Keba Keita has been absolutely outstanding here for the BYU Cougars, no question. Kevin Young's got a lot that he can rely on as far as his starting five. Robert Wright III has been a real solid, scorer and distributor for this team. But the bench is lacking. There's a very, very, they don't get a lot as far as outside of their starters. So the starters not only have to play big minutes, but, you need a lot of production from them. Meanwhile, you look at Clemson, and obviously that, like I said, the effort was there, in my opinion, against Alabama. And it'll be interesting to see how they play here in this one. They go a little bit deeper than BYU as far as bench is concerned. You look at it, they've got a couple of really good scorers as well. RJ Godfrey, who's averaging 12.1 points per game. I think they've got some size, too. They got a few more options than BYU along the bench. So, like I said, I just think now it's come down a bit. I think when it was 7.5, 8, I like Clemson more. 5.5's more in line with where I think it should be. But I definitely leaned at 6.5, 7, where it was earlier today, toward Clemson a little bit. Total is tough because I think it's an overpace. But these games at Madison Square Garden sometimes can go under, and long-term they've been unders in this venue for college basketball games, if you include the Big East tournament that's held here every year as well. So it's tough on the total. The matchup tells me over, but the venue and the situation kind of dictates the other way, so I'm probably going to stay off the total when it comes to that game. All right, next up in the starting five, Villanova, Michigan. Michigan 16.5 point home favorites, 153.5 the total in this game. I agree with the move up to the total. Michigan's over until proven otherwise. Like, they're scoring 90 and 100 points, every single game lately. They have just had no problem filling up the basket. I don't know if Villanova defensively, especially going on the road, is ready for what they're about to see here from this Michigan Wolverines team. They've been absolutely just tremendous offensively, inside, shooting the three, you name it. They've been able to get it done in so many different ways offensively. Number 6 in the whole country as far as field goal percentage, 50th in three-point percentage, 37.3. And by the way, Villanova does not defend the three. 363rd three-point percentage defense for Villanova. 42.5% allowed from the perimeter, from beyond the arc. That does not bode well for the Wildcats against Michigan's perimeter firepower here in this game. It's kind of a pace war. Villanova's in the 300s in pace and possessions per game. They're going to want to slow things down. But at the same point in time, I think when you look at Michigan, they're as fast as it gets, top 20 in pace. I always say the home team, and especially the better team, is going to be able to dictate that pace. I don't think Villanova is going to be able to defend this team. Once they get those threes falling, and all indications are, because that's a good matchup for Michigan against this Villanova defense that struggled against the three. Morez, Johnson, there's just too many weapons right now to deal with if you're on the Villanova side, when you look at what Michigan's got at their disposal with Morez Johnson, with Lendeborg, with Ade Mera, with Elliot Cadeau, Namari Burnett. It's just the starting five. They can all contribute. And like I said, with Villanova's defensive issues, when you look at the matchup here against the three-point shot, that's really what would concern you here about this matchup here for the Michigan Wolverines. And when you see that Michigan is 24th in field goals made and 50th in three-point percentage, it tells you the three ball is a big part of what makes Michigan successful. And the fact Villanova struggles so much to defend the perimeter is a real concern. So I like this over. Now, you're not getting the best number anymore, 153.5, but this opened as low as 148.5. And I'm definitely not stepping in front of Michigan. I would lay it or don't play it. As far as the minus, 16.5, 17.5 for Michigan. But I prefer the total here in this game. All right, next up, shout out to, by the way, I appreciate the kind words from Frederick Davis. Finally found you. Shout out to Ski. Well, I appreciate it. I do this show, Hitting the Books with Connor Mack. I got my own channel, which has a football show, the Football Frenzy, NFL every week on my own YouTube channel. The link is on Twitter. The Ice Guys for hockey, NHL, 7 days a week. We have that going as well, so I appreciate the support. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. Billy Heath, good to see you. Golfing Stars fan, good to see you. Dram Yankee, good to see you. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. On we go. Illinois, Ohio State. Illinois, 3.5-point road favorites, 160 the total. Big win for the Illini on the weekend, going to, it wasn't a true home game for Tennessee. It was in Nashville. But still, it was a very, very good win for the Illini. Defeating the Volunteers 75-62. I'm slightly concerned about maybe them having an emotional letdown or hangover here, but the problem is I don't know what to make of Ohio State. I don't know how good they are, because you look at their schedule. They beat Notre Dame, but they only won by 1 and escaped, and Notre Dame's got some issues, in my opinion. They lost to Pitt on a buzzer beater, 67-66. Pitt's a solid team. I don't know if they're great. They did beat Northwestern very impressively on the road, 86-82. But like I said, I think I need to see a little bit more here from Ohio State. Don't love the spot laying points on the road for Illinois, but don't really know if Ohio State's ready to compete with and or beat a team like Illinois, especially when you look at the fact Illinois has won 4 of the last 5. They've pretty much controlled the flow in recent head-to-head meetings versus Ohio State. What I do like in this game is another over. 3-0 to the over in the last 3 head-to-head meetings. 2 of those got into the 160s. I believe this total has climbed for a reason. 155 up to 159.5, 160. I think we will see some points here with Illinois taking on Ohio State. I still don't think Ohio State's defense is that good. They have shown they can score. They showed it against Northwestern. They showed it, against a couple other teams there, Indiana. IU Indianapolis early in the year. But defensively, when they have to face a pretty good offensive team, you can argue this better than any team offensively that they've seen this year, what they will face tonight with Illinois. I think there's still some questions on the defensive end of the basketball court for Ohio State. So you factor in the 3-0 over run, 2 of those getting into the 160s, and I do think the over is the way to go here in this one. All right, Penn State, Indiana, another Big Ten matchup. Indiana, 14-point home favorites, 152.5 the total here in this game. I think this is where Penn State, they're walking into a buzzsaw, in my opinion. I have been betting against Penn State quite a bit this year. Now, a lot of times they've been laying points. Now they're a big dog. Maybe now there's value on Penn State. Maybe there is, but I look at this team as a team with a lot of problems. They don't guard. They're struggling defensively. They have played as weak a schedule as I have seen to begin a season. They haven't played anybody outside of Providence. Providence is by far the best team that and they're a very young, very inexperienced team this year, the Penn State Nittany Lions, littered with a bunch of freshmen and sophomores. And when you look at Penn State going into this game here tonight, they played Navy at home, 12-point favorite, didn't cover, won by 9. They beat LaSalle 83-69. They did cover that, but they've been unimpressive. They 4-point home win against Harvard, 14.5-point favorites against the Boston University Terriers. They only won by 9. Again, didn't cover. Their one cover as a double-digit favorite was Sacred Heart, 90-59. And then Campbell in their last game, they give up 76 points in that game. And fail to cover as 14-point favorites. They haven't played anybody out, and then their one road game too was against New Haven, a newbie to Division I college basketball. So throw that one out. That's their one road game. Now you're going to Indiana. You're going to Assembly Hall for your first road game against a opponent of consequence, and an Indiana team that's off back-to-back losses. They lost at Minnesota. And then they lost on the neutral court against a very, very good Louisville team over the weekend. I think Penn State's just asking to get run out of the gym here tonight. I think it's a great spot for Indiana off back-to-back losses. Let's not forget this is back at Assembly Hall, and this is already a team with a 31-point win against Milwaukee on this floor and a 17-point win against Kansas State on this floor. They've played very well. Penn State hasn't played anybody on the road. They've feasted on weak teams at home, and they've failed to cover. They've barely gotten through some of these games, like Navy, like Harvard, like Boston, like Campbell. And the one time Penn State's been an underdog this year, this will be the second time. The only other time they've been an underdog this year was against Providence. They were a 4-point dog. They lost by 12. So I think they're up against it here. I think Indiana's ready to rock. I'm hearing rumblings that they're going to bring Fernando Mendoza, Signetti, and the Indiana Big Ten championship football team onto the court before the game to get the crowd all fired up for this game tonight against Penn State. So I think it's lay it or don't play it. I think there's a tough spot for Penn State. They haven't played anybody. They haven't played on the road against anyone other than New Haven, which is a terrible basketball team, by the way. I think it's Indiana winning going away here in this one against Penn State. This is where it shows up, I think, for Penn State, how young they are, how inexperienced they are, how much trouble they've had guarding and defending consistently early in the season. I think that all shows up here, and I expect Darian DeVries's team here to really step their game up here tonight after back-to-back losses on their home, now back on their home floor. All right, our last game for the starting five, Florida, UConn. This is the second game of the doubleheader at Madison Square Garden tonight. UConn 3.5-point favorites, 145.5 the total in this game. I like UConn. I don't love the number. I like UConn, and I don't love the number. I'll explain that. UConn has had a propensity in some of these games against the best teams to just do enough to scrape by and win. Asking UConn to win by margin, I'm not sure I'm excited about doing that. The Kansas win by 5. They did beat Illinois by 13, 74-61. They only beat BYU by 2, lost as a favorite against Arizona. So they've had mixed results, UConn, in these step-up-in-class games. They've definitely tested themselves. You cannot deny that. BYU, Arizona, Illinois, Kansas. They faced some good teams here early in the season. And the thing is, Florida, and what I love about UConn here in this spot most of all is that this is their first chance to play Florida since last year when Florida knocked them out in the NCAA tournament the second weekend, 77-75. Man, Florida had to earn it. That national championship almost didn't happen because UConn only lost by 2 to them in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament last year. So you got tournament revenge here for UConn. But I laid it with Duke against Florida last week, and Florida covered the number and only lost by 1. And you could probably say they should have won that game. And then you turn around and you see what Duke did at Michigan State. It makes that loss to Duke last week by 1 at Cameron Indoor look even more impressive. I don't know if I want to lay a full, 4 points, 3.5, 4 points against this Florida team. I know Florida's going through some transition in the backcourt. They got some new faces back there. They're trying to integrate Boogie Fland running the show at the point guard spot. Obviously, they've still got Thomas Houck and Alex Condon and Ruben Chinyelu. The front court's still intact, and it's great. We all know that from the championship team. But at the same point in time, like I said, Florida took Duke down to the wire, lost by 1. Well, if they lose by 1 here, they're covering the number. So that goes back to what I said at the start, where I like the spot for UConn. It would be UConn or pass for me in this game. I don't love this number because I could easily see this being a 1-possession game, and UConn survives at the end and they win by 2 or 3. That's not going to get the job done because they're laying 3.5, 4 here in this game. So I just wish the number was better. Like if this is, and remember, and I know they're padding this number a little bit too to reflect the fact that Madison Square Garden is like UConn's home away from home. Like, the place is going to be littered with UConn fans. UConn takes over Madison Square Garden every time they play there. All you have to do is look at the Big East tournaments these last few years whenever UConn plays there and how many UConn fans are there. So I agree. This is definitely not a neutral court tonight. UConn's going to have a pretty good pretty good advantage in fan support probably tonight. But that's accounted for in the number. So like I said, I really wanted to take UConn here. I lean UConn here, but the number's not great. I would have liked something closer to pick them than this. I'll probably have a small bet at the 3.5 on UConn, but like I said, I'm a little bit concerned this is a down-to-the-wire game. It very well could be. In my opinion. All right, there you have it. That's the starting 5, the biggest 5 marquee games. Again, on every college basketball show, we will start with the starting 5 segment, 5 of the biggest games on the board for this given slate. Just a couple other bets that I'm going to throw out to you guys. This is an ugly dog because I don't think they're very good, but I'm taking the Brown Bears against Providence. Brown is plus 19.5. What can Brown do for you? Cover the point spread, cash a ticket. That's what they can do. And I think they will do that tonight. I think it's a brutal spot for Providence. Providence is coming off a dominant, tremendous double-digit win against Rhode Island over the weekend. They're playing really good. They're starting to play really good basketball. I just think this is the ultimate flat spot. Coming off the Rhode Island win, you play your Big East Conference opener against Butler coming up in your next game, and nestled right in between, you've got this Brown game. And like I said, I think this is where kind of Providence, goes through the motions a little bit, just does enough to win the game. It's a big number, and Brown's not very good either, and especially offensively, they've had some issues. But I think in this spot, it's worth it. And this is like a little brother, big brother type of situation here. Brown getting a chance to play, an in-state team, because I'm pretty sure Brown is a Rhode Island University, if I'm not mistaken. It's in the state of Rhode. Yeah, it is. Yeah, Brown is in. Brown's right there in Providence. This is like an in-city battle. So Brown is going to look at this as, we want to measure up here against Providence. So I expect a good effort from Brown here tonight against Providence. And like I said, for Providence coming off the blowout against Rhode Island, the blowout win, and then they got Butler in conference play coming up. I think this is not a bad shot to take with Brown plus 19.5 against Providence tonight in that game. I like the over in South Dakota, Wyoming. That total's gone up. Both teams play fast. Both teams are very sketchy defensively. Both teams can score. So, South Dakota, Wyoming over the total. I like that one. What else did I bet here on the board here? Columbia. I think Columbia might be a little cheap against Stony Brook. I think Columbia is just better than Stony Brook. I don't always love laying points on the road, but 3.5 with the Columbia against Stony Brook. I'd probably lean in that direction. I grabbed the 17 with Northern Arizona, the Lumberjacks in-state game against Arizona State. I just think in this spot, Arizona State's had some big games lately. This may not be a spot where we're getting their absolute best. Remember, we're closing in on exams too for the students, so we don't expect some of these home courts to be as strong, as they typically can be. So I think being able to get 17 with the Lumberjacks there, NAU, Northern Arizona, we'll see how that plays out. But like I said, we've seen Northern Arizona. They did cover against Arizona. Let's not forget that. For Arizona State, they played Texas. They played Washington State. They lost to USC. Then they had another big. They've had one big game after another. Other than Georgia State, they played Gonzaga. They went, to Hawaii, then Texas, Washington State, USC, Oklahoma, which they won the last game 86-70. I think this could be a spot just to, do enough to win, move on. I think 17 here with Northern Arizona is worth a look there in that game. That's really about it. USC, San Diego. San Diego is pretty bad. Do I want to lay? I wouldn't bet San Diego. Do I want to lay 15.5, 16 is the question there in that game. The added board, I dabbled a little bit in Virginia because I think Maryland Eastern Shore is that bad. The over, I think, might be worth a look because I think Virginia can put up a big number there, and you just hope Eastern Shore can do enough. So Virginia laying the 37 plus the over, 134. I think both of those are worth a look. I took Bucknell against Rider. That's the only other added board game I bet. Bucknell, small road favorite against Rider. Rider's that bad. I tried back in Rider last game in their conference in Metro Atlantic play over the weekend, and they still didn't cover. They're just terrible. They're a really bad basketball team. One thing I'll say about Bucknell, the Bison, is, they played Pittsburgh. They played, St. John's. Buffalo's pretty solid. Cornell. They played some pretty decent teams in the non-con. Hofstra. I think Rider, like I said, it's rough. Rider is 1-6 against the spread, 1-7 straight up. We're just asking Bucknell to win this game. I think they can do that. So Bucknell, small road favorite against Rider. I like that. Yeah, USC off the Washington loss. That's a good point, Nick. Like I said, it's USC or pass. Maybe USC team total over because if they're going to cover, it's probably because they're going to score a lot. So the team total over for USC, I could see that. So again, I didn't bet it, but I don't mind looking at that. I'm definitely not betting the Toreros. I'm definitely not betting San Diego. That much I know. That's all I got. Unless one of you guys in the chat have a question for me about one of the other games, that's it. We're going to wrap it up. It's going to be a short show today with just me on it. Connor Mack will be back. Remember, members of the Hitting the Books YouTube channel, we got the members-only shows tomorrow on Wednesday and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you check those out. We're looking forward to it. All sports we hit, NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball, NHL on the members-only editions of the Hitting the Books show. So make sure you check that out. Tomorrow, we've got one, 5 p.m. Eastern, and again on Friday, we have one also at 5 p.m. Eastern time. All right. Wyoming, I like the over in that game there, Maurice, more than anything. Wyoming, South Dakota. I lean to the favorite, though. I do. I lean to the favorite. I think, Laramie's a pretty tough place. They've been good historically there. It's just a few too many points. I wanted to lay a little cheaper number than that, but certainly I would only look toward Wyoming at home. Let's lay it or don't play it for me as far as the side goes there. Best bet. Let's see where we're going to go for best bet here. We're giving out a best bet. It's on a bad team. It's an ugly dog bet, but I think the spot screams just flat for Providence. Coming off the Rhode Island win, they got Butler coming up in Big East play to start the conference season. Brown's going to treat this game like the national championship. Brown is located right there in Providence, Rhode Island. It's a chance to play your big brother in city, never mind in city, Providence there. So it's ugly because Brown's not that good, but I'm taking it. I love the spot. The number's really good because I think it's Providence now. You're getting a tax on Providence after how well they played against Rhode Island. So Brown, what can Brown do for you? Cash a best bet, hopefully, on Hitting the Books. Brown plus 19.5 against Providence. for my best bet. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. And again, we're back tomorrow. We're back on Friday with more editions of the Hitting the Book show for members only. So make sure you join us for that. I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Tuesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will be back tomorrow on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific for a members only edition of the Hitting the Book show. Until then, class dismissed.